Welcome, everybody, to our first ever voiceover webinar. Today, we're joined by Morla Gorandana, and we're going to be talking about everything that goes into getting your career started up in voiceover. And I'll leave it at that. So, uh, Morla, how's everything going with you today?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's going great today. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this new the very first ever voiceover webinar for the Game Audio Network Guild. So much of my beginnings in voiceover for games has been through understanding game development and understanding game audio and having that access to the professionals, the people who are making games and making the game audio that I love, having that access to them through the Game Audio Network Guild has been um, invaluable to my career. It is a major cornerstone of why I even have a career. So I'm happy to be here and talk about what role G.A.N.G plays and like all the things that go into getting that coveted time in a booth or in a performance capture volume and just having a fuller understanding of what that work looks like.
Awesome. So, let's see. What are the first steps when you're training your voice for voiceover?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because I think about people ask like how do you get started? Like and I think about it in terms of like what's the beginning and what do people perceive as a beginning? Is like the beginning of your career, your first session is the beginning of your career when you have an agent, is the beginning of your career when you first start auditioning, is it when you decide um, and I think back to like, what's the actual beginning of my career in voiceover? Not even talking about voiceover for games, which is voiceover itself. Um, and every time I think I find the starting point, it's just a little, it's always a little bit further back. And I honestly feel like some of the earliest like little moments of understanding or discovery that I enjoy my voice or I'm curious about my voice happened when I was very, very young. And like noticing how my breath moves and noticing the becoming aware of the concept of placing my breath somewhere in my body, someplace separate than just like my throat or my voice box or having it come straight out of my mouth, like noticing that okay, I can breathe in the front of my chest. I can breathe in from the back. I can breathe from my back. I can breathe from my belly. I can like move it around. I can place my voice in different parts of my head and I can isolate it here and then I can have it like drift into this other part of my face. And I had the earliest little sparkles of awareness of that at a very young age. And then there's this very specific moment when I was still quite young, 8 or younger. I've had a cassette tape and I started recording voices because I paid attention to accents and things around me all the time and I tried to recreate them all the time. I would record them and like leave a space and record and then leave a space and then go back and do a different voice and then go back and do a different voice and a different voice. And so I wound up having a whole conversation doing all these different voices and I was like, "Oh, I think that's the beginning." So I think understanding like having curiosity about your voice, having awareness of the sounds around you, understanding your body and what the body voice body connection is like the beginning. And then you can that can be as instinctual or as factual as it can be. You can dive deep on both sides, just dive deep, just getting a response from your own body or studying the actual mechanism. Both are incredibly valuable. And in fact, in later years in college, when I was taking voice diction classes, that was the first thing that we learned, is understanding what comprises all the parts that make up the voice. And then from there, learning breath support, learning how like learning a way of focusing our energy into breath and voice so that you can get full, resonance, articulation, all those things. So yeah, I think having curiosity and interest and fascination with your body is a great start. And then for me, it really went into hyperdrive when I was reintroduced to the world of video games. I had played games. I had in my earlier days, NES, bubble bubble all the way. But and then I put them away. I put them away for years and for nobler pursuits. So I thought in my mind, these are childish things. I must put them away, and I will pursue my career in theater. And I mean, man, if I knew then and what I know now, I would have never gotten rid of my console. And I would have amassed all of them. But yeah, my reintroduction into games via BioShock was kind of a perfect reintroduction, understanding how narrative driven games had become while I was away, and understanding how much gravity the voice has, how significant voice had become for games was also a very important part. So I think understanding your body, understanding what medium you want to be in, not that you have to limit yourself to that, but I think having a going like deep diving into a particular medium is valuable. It has been for me. And then once I knew it was games for me, and because it was, I literally dropped all other acting work that I was doing. It's like, it's just games. It's just games. And I made it my mission to learn about games. There was a whole history of games that I had missed out on for many years, and I needed to get caught up. I needed to understand what was going on now. I needed to understand how they were being made. I needed to understand where does voiceover, like where does it fit in the big picture of things, and understanding pipeline and understanding like a dev cycle and who's in charge of what and how it's different from one developer to another developer, and developer versus publisher, all these things. Like these were all brand new, totally foreign to these ideas. And then learning about those, attending the game developers conference was I mean, that was my education, basically. That was my education. Um and it was and I knew that I was on the right track because I was fascinated by all of it. Everything. I wanted to know everything there was to know about sound design. I wanted to know, I wanted to meet all the composers. I wanted to understand the process. And I loved just looking at like the dirty, raw, ugly sections of things, the completely unfinished product, and like seeing how it got to this wonderful masterpiece, this art that we play. And I wanted to understand how I wanted to understand my role as an actor, not just like my role as a character, but my role as an actor and how I can best support a development team. Because it was that was a large lesson too, was understanding, whereas in theater, the actor's the thing, right? The actor's the thing. The sets, everything's important. It's all important, but it's like the actors in film, it's the actor. But in games, it's I think there's a greater I think to have a understanding of how long a dev cycle is, and that people have been working on this project, this title for 8 years, this IP for 30, like, it's knowing that people have invested their lives, they go into work every day to do this, and then the thing that I do, it's valuable. I'm never going to be one to lessen it. I think it's incredibly valuable, and it's also it's it's it kind of comes at the end, and now whether it should come at the end, that's a whole different story. I have opinions, and I personally would love to see VO come in to the development cycle way earlier. I think there's a lot of benefit to that, but that's a whole other story for a whole other
For a whole
webinar.
different webinar.
Yeah. So I did that was that
Yeah, that totally answered the question.
great. Good.
Like we need to get a sense of the entire field that we're jumping into, get sort of situated. Um, we need to know the landscape before we can actually really jump further in, basically.
I think so. I think there are oftentimes people will say, yeah, I'd love to get into games. And it's like, well, what do you know about games? Do you play games? Like, no. Well, there is an expectation of theater actors to understand theater. There's an expectation from film theatrical actors to understand their medium. It's not a requirement, but it feels like respect to me. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So, next question.
Yes.
How do you go about getting used to the sound of your own voice?
Uh, um, time is time. Um, because it's weird. It's strange. We think we know what we sound like, and we don't. It's still for me a like, oh, I gotta prepare myself for, gauge my expectations, or prepare myself when I hear my voice. But yes, you have to just time in booth, play, just play and playing and playing and playing. I think if you want to, like, okay, so there's the start. This is like another beginning. This is another way to start. Just record, and don't let anybody listen to what it is that you're recording, and let it be for yourself. Allow yourself to just speak normally. Try a voice, try a character. Just do it. Just keep doing and do it and doing it. Start to identify, oh, I'm holding tension there. Oh, I need to learn how to relax. Oh, I'm running out of breath. The only way you're going to understand it is just to spend time in booth, or if you don't have a booth, like if you don't even have to booth, just have like a cassette, have a just some way of doing it, logging hours, listening back. And then eventually over time that can become like, okay, now I have a DAW that I'm using. I like Logic. I'm like, now I'm recording myself in Logic. And so now I've got like actual good cans. Now I've got a decent mic, and I have a clearer idea of what my voice sounds like. And and the more time you spend just hearing it, the more time you can learn how to stretch it. you can start to play and just understand where your voice sits naturally, and like what kind of characters do those invoke. Just as a natural speaking voice, what kind of character would you maybe be best suited for? And then think about what kind of characters you might want to play, and then try for what those kinds of voices might be. I started by thinking about in creating like my my fundamental characters based off of video game characters. So there's like the narrator, and then there's the marine, or the military person. There's like there's and then there, but and within that there's like grunt and leader, right? So that's a differentiation as well. And there's the fantastical, the fantasy based character. What does that sound like? There's the evil character, like the Dark Lord, and the villains, and kind of understanding what, just with my regular voice print, without trying to do anything, what do those characters look like in my mind's eye? Um, yeah, I think that was a really good way of getting used to my voice, is just listening to it, playing with it, and then playing it back, and then eventually learning how to edit, like, because you're gonna have to listen to the sound of your voice while you're editing. um and that can have its own kind of stumbling blocks, because um in the editing process, because when you're editing your own auditions, like you can't get hung up on what your voice sounds like. You have to just like learn how to make really quick decisions, edit, cut it, put it together, and then send it, because auditions are happening so fast. You just got to get really quick with that. So being familiar with your voice is super super important for that in
Actually,
particular.
I
Yeah.
have a follow-up question. What would the
Yes.
typical turnaround be uh, for an audition? Like the average audition, what's usually the amount of time?
uh well, it really varies. There is no typical. I get some auditions is like, it's due today. It's a rush one. It's due today. Um, I I would say more often than not, it's like, you can get it like 3 or even 5 in the afternoon, and it's due at 9 or noon the next day. It's pretty fast, pretty fast. That's getting better. That's getting better. I've noticed, even actually in the past month, things that would normally, I would feel like would have been an overnight turnaround. It's like you have a full day. There's like a full day at least in there. And then um, some that I've gotten recently, it was almost a week, which is lovely. Lovely. And then it also depends too on, like, is it VO or is it a self tape, for performance capture, because that's a whole other kind of audition. That's a whole other kind. It's um very different, and time consuming, and the setup is completely different. It's like a different part of the house that I'm doing it. It's not in my booth. It's in the larger space. So yeah, it varies, but I think it's commercials tend to be same day or next morning. uh Games and animation tend to be a day, hopefully two, and then performance capture are hopefully like 2 to 3 days.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute my mic. So wonderful. How do you go about creating a voice for a character? Like you have the basic idea of what the character is,
Hmm.
and you're crafting it. Where do you start?
Yeah. Um, I think in an so I'll do audition versus like a session, right? So in an audition, it's completely based off of the sides, the character description, the image, if there's an image of the character, uh, um, tonal suggestions, whether it's a sound alike or not. So all of those things go into painting a picture in my mind about um, what the character will sound like, painting a picture of what the character will sound like. I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of how it works out. Like I envision the character if I don't have an image, or even if I do have that, like I kind of like paint it over myself and like embody it is probably a better word of I try to embody the character and then imagine like where their voice might sit and adjust um try it a couple of times like oh that feels right, that doesn't feel right. um and I think it's in an audition it's just it's really it's kind of answering the brief. um but it's also this weird thing of like give them what they're asking for but also give them the thing that they don't know that they want, which um that's it's such a that's like the pursuit, that's the never ending pursuit, like figuring out what that is. And more and more I am learning, more and more I'm understanding it's like you, it's the thing that they don't even know that they want is whatever it is that you are, that's the thing that no one else can give. um that's really a tricky thing to do. Like, what is the me in this villain? What is the me in this fairy? What is the me in this shark? Like, what is it? It's really, that's the trick. So I think creating a voice has a lot to do with understanding yourself. And then, yeah, and again just like playing with it, trying things out. um and one of the things that I didn't mention earlier but it's also applies here is like trying really big huge things. I have a friend, my friend Larissa Gallagher, a fellow voice actor. We talk about how we always got to do the cuckoo bananas take. You just got to do the take, like try, just like do the one thing where you just do a completely crazy, insane, like no one's going to want this kind of take, just to get it out there to press, find out where the walls are. Like where's the extremes. Sometimes that cuckoo bananas is like, oh, that was actually that's great. I'm like I've loosened up. That is actually something, and maybe I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do something very similar to that. Maybe a little bit like I'll get the lines, the words more clear or something. But yeah, that was where it's at. Sometimes it's like shed off whatever preconceived ideas about what this character is. Shed. It's just like I'm talking to my friend. I'm talking to my friend. I'm talking to my friend. Um, it's I'm in a fire. I'm in the middle of the battlefield. I've never been in the middle of the battlefield, but I'm talking to my friend. I'm talking to my friend, and so I think a key component is intuition, is doing like working it until like first trusting your gut to start, and then working it until it just feels right. Um, and now character development within the within a uh, in collaboration with a developer, that can also be very different. Sometimes it's you had the audition, great, just do the same thing that you did in the audition. Here's the script. You walk into the into the studio, you're handed the script. It's all cold reading, so there's not a whole lot of space time for depth of character development. Maybe it's like, do you have my audition for reference so that I can kind of get back into that whatever placement in my face that I put it? Was it in my sinus cavity? Was it in my jaw? Was it in my chest? So hopefully you have something like that, and then just kind of go. Um, but sometimes it's like you're with the character long enough where you wind up developing the character together, as has kind of been the case with Eris. She entered as this one type of character, and over time she's become this very of a very different, she's got a very different energy about her. And that audition particularly was that felt like a bit of magic, in that I I I I I auditioned for this character, and the it just it was a phone audition, which are rare, which are great, and they're rare. And it just felt like every idea that the director was giving me for this character was like, I like, it just resonated. It just immediately was like, yes, I understand. I fully understand that. That reminds me of this. He would be like, yes, I totally get that. It was this wonderful chemistry that was happening. And so it was like a little bit of magic. And I know that they had an idea for what she was going to sound like. So it's not like it wasn't like a co-creating. I wasn't part of the development of that character. I wasn't in the room like, you know what I think she should sound like. But I do feel like there's this thing that happened, this like kismet, where they know but they don't know. And then like I did the thing, like that's the thing. And it's just there's a some kind of, it just happens sometimes that way. And then there are other times, as is the case with when I'm working with Polyarch, where it really genuinely is a collaboration. We have table reads. We talk about what character, because as a for Moss, I am the narrator, but I also voice all the characters within the game. So we'll sit and we will have many table reads and meetings talking about what makes sense. I'll offer things. They'll be like, yes, no, what else can you do? This is where the character's going. Here's the script in advance. You get the script 6 months in advance, play with it, see what you come back with. And like my contribution is it feels very involved and collaborative, and like I feel like I'm actually on their team. That's incredibly rare, but hopefully not for much longer. So
That sounds like
that's the whole span of
probably
it. That's everything.
that sounds like probably the most ideal way to work, is
Oh my
so
gosh. It's a dream.
collaboratively.
It's a dream. And in fact, that's how it was presented to me. Like, in a dream world, what would you like to see your involvement, or how would you like to see this go? And I'm like, wow, I've never even thought to ask it. I've never thought to ask that myself, let alone be asked that by a developer who's ready to implement my ideas. I mean, Polyarch's where it's at. So,
Pretty awesome.
yeah.
Do you think now would be a good time to play through some of your character samples from
Oh,
the
yeah, that's
show?
a great idea. Yes, yes. This is and we can talk a little bit about like how I came to those characters, what was involved, and which one I got from auditions and which ones were like direct correlation between gang and project.
Morla Gorindona. I am Eris, the last. I have seen what the Hive call a god.
My primary purpose is yeah, so that's Eris. That's that's the that's like the that's the career launcher for me. That's the thing that really changed everything for me. And that is 100% a direct result of the Game Audio Network Guild. Um, I I met Stephen Hottie, who was sound designer at Bungie at the time, and he was, well, this is before he was even a sound designer at Bungie. He was a sound designer, and he wasn't sure where he was going to be. He submitted a demo to the G.A.N.G demo derby at GDC. I thought it was a great demo. I love going to the demo derbies. And then I gave him my card at the end of the derby, and I said, your sound design on VO will probably never work together, but if you ever figure out a way, I mean, I would love to work with you. You're so talented. I'd love to work with you. And then like, fast forward to, I don't know, like 4 years later, I get a call. He's like, "Hey, I am working at Bungie now, and I happen to be living in Washington at the time too." And he's like, "I have been." He said that he had been tasked with creating the creatures, like the sound of the hive for Destiny. And he's like, "I would love for you to come in and just play. Let's see what we can come up with." And I love doing creature sounds. And so I was like, "Yeah, that's great. Let's do it." So I did that. And directly from that is how I got the audition for Eris. There had been through a round of auditions, and then there was like this kind of idea of, wouldn't it be kind of interesting if the character Eris, who lived with the hive, who was fighting the hive, is the same person who voiced the hive? And that's how it happened. And I auditioned, and it was like kismet. It was magic. And from that, like, all other things come from that. So yay, gang.
All right, do we want to try another one?
Yeah.
This is to train She-Ra. I will answer all of your questions. But that information has not yet loaded. I did, however, just learn how to control gravity in the Crystal Castle.
So that's Light Hope from She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. And that was from an audition and that audition was won as a direct result of my undying love for She-Ra, but also my undying love for GLaDOS. My first audition, I just went full GLaDOS on the character, and it wasn't the direction that they went, but it was that knowledge of games, of AI, of iconic AI, that got me into the callbacks, and from there winning that role. So.
For anybody that isn't aware, GLaDOS is a robot from the game Portal.
Wonderful character, like iconic. So that's those when we're talking about, that was another one when I'm talking about like the major tenets, the major pillars of characters in games. AI is also one of them, and GLaDOS is obviously the queen of all of them.
The queen of AIs that got sick of humans.
Yeah. I was just listening to the song Still Alive last night. That's how much I love GLaDOS.
End credit song to Portal 2?
That's right.
Oh,
I
man,
was listening
awesome.
to it just last night. For fun.
Dude, it's super catchy. All right, let's try another one.
Great.
Looking after me and mine all along. I allowed them to take her away from me. They are the reason my daughter is dead.
So that is May from The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. That actually, I was gonna say that came from an audition, but actually that one came from G.A.N.G as well, because I forgot that the reason why I got the audition in the first place was because Michael Surix, who was one of the first people that I met at Gang, in Gang at Austin GDC. He the director of the game asked him if he knew anybody who specialized in New Orleans accents. And Michael Surix said, yes, you need to talk to Morla Gorondona. And so yeah, I forgot. That's a Gang win also. Because I wouldn't I mean, maybe I would have gotten the audition. I'd like to think I would have gotten the audition, but also getting that recommendation like just that's how it works, right? It's
The personal connection can just push you that extra step.
it really does, and um building those relations, it's a million gestures. It's showing up and being professional all the time, even when you think it's just like a pal or whatever. It's like a pal, but like we also are like he's my friend. And also it's very important to remember the like that there's the professionalism. Like you're always showing up as a hireable person, like so we Michael and I have like created this trust over years, so that he immediately thought of me and then gave it to the director, and the director hired me for it. And that also speaks to understanding your like your wheelhouses, like understanding your strengths. So AI is going to be a strength for me. Dialect is also a thing, like understanding that I'm not going to be great at every accent, but I do know Southern accents. And so I will focus on doing Southern accents. I will focus on, I'm not just going to be a person who knows Southern accents. Like I'm the authority. Like my mission is like to be the authority on Southern accent. I'm the go-to person for Southern accent. That's just something that to continually work on. Yeah.
Yeah, you might call that carving yourself out like a niche in the industry.
Absolutely. And I think you can have many. Like I strive to have many. Like I am in like my niche that I'm striving right now is like I'm studying Norwegian. So like I want to have mastery over other accents outside of Southern now. So that's like I study Norwegian, I study Dutch, I study Irish, things that I think I would be most, people would look at me and be like, yes, you could be this, visually be this character. So I studied the language so I can better understand the accent. And then like finding a niche in creature voices, finding a niche in studying combat and weaponry, so that performance capture, it's not something that I have to learn before I go in. I'm already ready. I know these things.
Awesome.
There's lots of niches. I'm trying to think of the niches. So many niches.
For sure. I mean, there's so much that you could do in the voiceover industry, in terms of just so many character types. So let's try another character.
Yeah.
Eco transmitting to off-world beacons. Final outpost compromised. All personnel destroyed.
Okay. So that was Eco from Stormland. So many of these are VR titles, which is really cool. But that was strictly from audition. But it was also clearly GLaDOS inspired. Very different GLaDOS sound. And also like infused with HAL, Space Odyssey, which also speaks to part of the work that goes into getting the work in the booth is understanding, being familiar with cultural reference points. Always be consuming film, always be consuming music, always be under reading, so that so that cultural reference points aren't lost. You can really, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing additional research on a thing. You just, oh, great, got it. I know it. It's shorthand, like understanding it's a like cultural reference point shorthand.
Yeah, and with things like robots, I mean, the average person like myself, a non-voice actor, if I tried to do a robot voice, it might come across as cliche or corny because I would just try and do a monotone voice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How do you do sort of a robot voice or like an approach to these characters that like is nuanced and doesn't come across as like, oh, being a she's being a robot?
Right, like the humanizing of the robot.
Yes.
Yeah, like the thing that really got me in the audition for Eco that it was something that they offered that I was like, oh, that it was this interesting way of humanizing it. Was that like imagine a robot with a 1,000-yard stare. And just the idea of a robot having a stare was enough to like, oh, it's human. Like it's so it was sentient, but now it's just that vacant. So I just imagine like that, and then like just find my speaking voice and then give it like a 1,000-yard stare. And then just there's like a amount of articulation and like compression in the voice. So it feels human and it still follows. It still has lilt and volume and like it can um accentuate different words and there can be pause. I think the melody, the cadence is maintaining the degree of cadence is going to make it more or less human, I think. I'm discovering as I'm saying it to you right now. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's yeah, I think starting I think that can be approach. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got a different approach, but that seemed to make sense to me. Starting human, going kind of 1,000-yard, and then adding the more like tinny and metallic-y, which I guess I don't know. I feel like I've like developed such a shorthand in my own brain. Like when I say, "Oh, I'm going to be tinny," I know exactly what that is. Like I can just turn my voice tinny.
You could
But
just
that's all
add
just the
that. You
result
could
of
just
spending
instantly,
time playing with it, right?
yeah, you could just instantly add that high end to your voice.
Yeah. But then you can like there's also like going very like super robot-y, like a Siri kind of thing. Siri. Like I'm not gonna try to do it right now.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's like more stilted and more like kind of like imagining the glitches and building in the glitches. I like doing the glitches. Like, yeah.
I dig that. Also, thinking of Siri as kind of glitchy makes sense. I mean, she shouldn't like the Alexas in the series shouldn't be glitchy, but I've always felt they were kind of in that uncanny valley of being.
Absolutely uncanny valley. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like on the verge of like trying to figure out if I'm going to try attempt to do that right now. I'm not gonna try. I'm not
we
gonna try.
could we could
I'm not
try
gonna try.
another character.
I'll try it.
If we don't face Sarfog now, my uncle will die. And that monster won't stop until you and I are torn apart. Will you stay with me and try?
Oh, that's Quill from Moss Book One, and as I mentioned earlier, that's so in Moss, it's the game, it's VR, and it's like reading a story. So I'm the narrator, but I'm voicing all the characters within the story, and that game is also a direct result of my connection to the Game Audio Network Guild. In that Stephen Hottie, the aforementioned Stephen Hottie, it was the audio director for that game. So and Moss Book 2. And I mean, what a I get emotional just thinking about that game because it's a beautiful game. It is a gorgeous game, and that has the what it looks like has nothing to do with me. So it's just stunning, and the story is moving and surprising, and I think having such a close connection or developing such a close connection with Polyarch, um, it just makes it's very emotional. It's a very emotional game for me. And I feel like because of that connection, I have poured myself into it and like just like cracked open my chest and my heart and my emotions a million times for that game. And I love it. And and one of the things that makes it really special is that having early copies of the script, and that it is read like a book, I was able to take the script home and read it to my son as bedtime story as part of my research for the game. How sweet is that?
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and that was encouraged. So like um,
You want to
so
script your children
none of this like
bedtime?
keeping like NDA, like I mean there's NDA of course, but it's like, well, I would love to read it to my son. Yes, of course, by all means. That's a great idea. Do it. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's harmless.
Super special. It there's just things that you can find in that. Just in do Even if it were just that, like the things you can find in that you just can't find day of in the booth when you're given the script for the first time. So
Totally.
yeah.
All right. Let's I think we're almost to the end of the characters, but let's try another one.
I think so, yeah.
Our lives aren't yours anymore! Your lives are the property of Delos Incorporated. You live and die by our will. By my will!
And that was Chelsea Brannon from Westworld Awakening. That one came directly from an audition. I don't think there's any gang connection in that one. But yeah, it was also a Vera title. A lot of fun. Great. I think I'm trying to think in context of what the idea of this panel is like what went into that. So luckily I had already been watching Westworld, so I was very familiar with the IP. And I so for performance capture, making sure that you're physically aware, that your physical awareness doesn't stop at voice, and that there's a voice body integration, and that so things like taking combat classes, taking weaponry, dance classes, yoga is a huge one for me. Always staying connected to my body is paramount, because especially when it comes to performance capture, because it's easy if you spend enough time in your voice, even though VO booth work is very physical, it's a specific kind of physical, and it's good to like reintegrate like voice and body as one acting unit in a not performative but performative kind of way.
Yeah, and with that character in particular, that was a very angry sample of
Mm-hmm.
like she was having a meltdown of some sort. How do you approach that type of performance?
uh Well, I mean, so throughout the game. It builds. So she starts being as very like on the side of the player character, very sweet and coaxing and like, oh yeah, come along, come along. And then over time, it's just like the tension of this impending doom. And then she like cracks so that because she no longer has control over this player character anymore. And so this for her, it was a sense of regaining control and exasperation, and then just deciding that she's going to regaining control by in a different way through violence. Just through sheer violence. And I just thought about like this, like the scariest yelly grown up that I could think of. And because there's a little bit of like a mother child relationship. It's not, I mean, it's not, but it could be, the case could be made. And so like a really angry mom, like angry moms can be the scariest. Angry moms can be scarier than angry dads. So
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
So I imagined scary mom who was like just done, just absolutely done, like blood splattered, and like, that's it. We're get in the car.
Oh man, I have a story, but I can't tell it. Let's say it on this webinar. Anyways,
I think we have one more. I think we have
one more character.
one more character, yeah.
Affirmative. Moving out. Let's blow shit up. Let's do some damage. I got your back, ground pounder. Hoorah! Mobile artillery, get in the wind. TACOM, requesting redeploy to new hot zone. What? It's over? Already? Crushed it.
Yeah. That's Battery from Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and 4. And yeah, that was also very gang related as well. It kind of like, I feel like I kind of won it in 3 different ways, in that there was a person who is at Treyarch who's a huge Destiny fan, and then was like really interested in getting the person who voiced Eris into his game. And so and then it also turns out that the audio director is a member of the Game Audio Network Guild, and I auditioned for it. So yeah, that was like kind of, but you know, Call of Duty is it feels like having multiple modes of entry feels right, because it's such a iconic IP. It's like, oh yeah, you gotta like kind of prove yourself in a number of different ways to get in. So yeah, Gang was absolutely an important part of getting into this game. And it also speaks to those iconic pillar characters, just having like the bones of a military type in your backpack, in your Rolodex, in your character Rolodex, to pull out and then put on the pieces that makes her unique or different from other ones. Is but being able, like, learning how to speak in a way that is clear, with urgency, that's not loud or panicked. It's very military speak, is very specific. And it can, I mean, it took me a while to like figure it out. A lot of movie watching for that. Lots of different films. I can't remember which ones. I'm sure like Alien always feels like a right one, even though it's not military. It's like there's just like that kind of clipped like way of talking, of like the urgency without panic.
Urgency without panic is a great way of putting it.
Yeah, got to be really super clear.
Awesome.
which like moms talk that way too sometimes too. So I think there's like a way to relate to it too. It's like, okay, like let me be super clear. Like that hyper focus. That laser focus, yeah.
Got it. So let's do we want to show your creature voice?
Oh yeah. We'll do that. And then I want to like kind of wrap it up with an idea about
Yeah, we actually have
G.A.N.G and hang and stuff like that.
yeah, we have a really good question from Josh Crane that could lead into that.
Okay.
But first, we will show the creature video. All right.
Get ready to get disgusted.
That's
Oh, I love doing creature stuff so much. It's so fun. It's there's no script. It's just like, what can my voice do? And it's scary, like to just jump into it. There's nothing. And then it's like, okay, just like, okay, are we talking gloopy or dry? Are we talking mechanical or organic? Are we talking horror? Is it screechy or growly? And like, give me that. And then it's like, okay, let's see what we come up with. And it's so much fun. It's not a thing that I would have conceived of pursuing when I started VO for games. It's just something that I was like, oh yeah, that's fun. I can do that. Sure, I can do that. It's a lot of saying yes to things especially when you're getting started. Oh yes, for it. I can do that. Sure, I can do that. And then we're like, oh no, I really actually can do this. This is something I can do and I enjoy. And I have the background in education and experience with my mechanism and my breath support knowledge to do it in a way that is not damaging, that I can do it in a healthy way, that I can do a creature session and then still do a whisper session later that day. So yeah, I love it. I have in fact, in the Eris scene, that first clip, in the background, all those creatures, those were my first session from Destiny before I was Eris. It's very meta. It's a very meta moment. But yeah. So yeah, I love it. I love that stuff. Ask me something about it.
awesome. So how do you let's talk the specific sample that you sent, it reminded me of zombies. Like there are so many different types of zombies now. Like what was the direction that you were given, like in order to capture that particular type of zombie sounds?
Good ear. Yes, it was zombies. It was also from The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. And
that might be why I'm thinking zombies, because I've been playing through that game on VR to try and get through it. So I've probably heard that.
hey. Yes, it's I don't remember. I think when it comes to like Walking Dead zombies, I already knew, I knew what to do. Like I knew what to do. Like I'm just gonna try and see what happens. And I was so glad that the director recorded that. I've never had it recorded before. It is something to see, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But and then you can really see also in that what I talk about with like how VO work is very physical. It's like that's
like you threw your whole body into the performance.
And always do that with all the characters that I do. It's just finding a way to do it, like finding a position or a posture or a movement that doesn't pick up sound. So like for me, that seemed to work because it gave me that kind of like, I took like the idea of like a zombie, like a kind of zombie, and then did that. Like I'm grasping for the player character, like trying to get at them. So that made sense to have that physicality. And they're very lurchy and gloopy and so it all just kind of comes together. And then I just on an adrenaline rush, because it is an adrenaline rush, because there's nothing exists. And then you're gonna like create a thing that never existed before, which is for me is an adrenaline rush. And then just like go. So, and I think you need an adrenaline rush if you're voicing a zombie. I'm sure they're just pure adrenaline, aren't they? Right?
Pretty much just, I mean, yeah, most zombies, all they want to do is go and feed on stuff. So,
Yeah. So that's how that one came about. Just understanding the IP, understanding from that IP that it's a choky, gloopy, not like a blobby, like a blobby gloopy, but like that raspy, decayy, but there's somehow blood still involved, like body fluid. Like I imagine this is gonna get gross. Get like that congealed, like rigor mortis, but not rigor mortis, like congealed body fluid in the vocal cavity. All of the vocal cavities.
oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Walking Dead fan too, just the show and everything. And that's it. It captures it.
Oh, great. Love it. Love that. Love that. Yeah. Bring
Impossible.
on. Bring them on. I'm trying to think if there's other type of creatures that I think all the like because I've done a bunch of them recently, but none of them are like out. So but yeah, like there's all sorts. There's no limit. There's no limit to creatures.
And that's kind of the fun part about it, right?
Oh, so fun. So fun.
Awesome. So we have a question from Josh Crane that sort of
Mhm.
leads us into our Q&A section of
Great.
the last portion of the webinar. What advice would you give to someone shifting from another industry and trying to get that very first gig?
Mm.
He was a chef in Chicago and recently moved to LA to pursue the VO dream. So, like, how do you go about finding work?
How do you go from chef to voice? Well, I mean, I think a lot of the things that we've talked about for sure is like it also just depends on what your experience is in acting and what your experience is in like where are you on your journey? So like are you starting by learning, are you learning the sound of your voice? Are you understanding, are you there? Do you have experience in like any kind of theater or any kind of have you taken any acting classes? I mean, I think building a foundation is essential. So that foundation for me consists of body understanding, taking classes to understand like fundamentals of acting. If you want to work in games, that consists of like playing games, and then yeah, from there I would say uh once you've played with your voice for a while and you start to feel confident, then maybe that at that point start to share with people who you trust, who you know will give you kind and constructive feedback. And then I get from there, I would say once you've reached that part, then the understanding your community, I think, is key too. it all happens kind of at the same time. So there's no, it's not like boop, 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 boop. It's kind of like all the things rising and falling at different times. So learning your community, and then this is something that I really want to talk about, because I think community is a huge part of career development. For me, G.A.N.G, like the there used to be, I'm not sure if there is anymore, but there used to be like online message boards and things like that, learning through that, going to the game developers conference and meeting people there. In LA, there's a gent by the name of Lorenzo, who couldn't reach out to community. He was like trying to make community, couldn't make community. So he decided to create his own. He created the LA Game Audio hang. So he just created a hang. And then like all of a sudden the people are coming to him. And now he works at Sony. So, it's like I think that's just kind of how it happens. Like you find community. If you can't find community, like make community, and then understand where people are at, and then keep working on your craft. Just keep working on your craft. And then as far as like getting access to sides and materials, there are websites online. There's like Actors Access, where you can get sides, and then you can, if you're feeling brave enough to do it, you can audition there, submit for auditions on Actors Access. I guess it's just so it's for to give specific. It's like I'd want to know, are you still here? Like, where are you in your journey? Can we ask that question just so I can kind of give something a little bit more constructive directly to him?
If we can ask that.
Where are you in your journey?
Or if he's in the chat,
Mm-hmm.
let's see if he could answer that in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Like, if there's any theater acting experience, or have you taken any classes, or do you have the capacity to record yourself and listen and play around with your voice? I mean, I think it's just like a lot of things that we were talking about before, and then building community, tapping into community, and taking classes, and then when you feel like and because a lot of it has to do with your intuition, like we were saying earlier too, a lot of it, like when you feel like you're ready, when you feel like, okay, I can put myself out there, creating a little demo for yourself of the characters that you've created. I myself didn't have any sides to go off of. My history is in Shakespeare. So I took those ideas of the Tenet characters that I was talking about earlier and applied them to Shakespeare characters. And so I did snippets from Shakespeare monologues, and with different video game type characters as the characters. And I put those together. That was my first demo. Actually, I had that demo up like well past the time that I should have. But I mean, it did the job. Like, having a demo is super important. I'm not even 100% sure that people even listen to demos. I think it's like they ask the question, do you have a demo? Because it shows your degree of investment in the career that you're in. Like, if you don't have a demo, then clearly like you're not invested enough to put it together. If you have one, I'm sure people do listen to it. I think people listen to them less. They just ask the questions so they understand where you're at. Is this from Josh?
Yep.
He's responded?
So Josh says, I've been lucky enough to have a few connections with creative directors and some industry folks. They all recommend classes as well.
Uh-huh.
I have very little performance background, but I have been playing narrative-driven games for decades and have a passion for storytelling. Currently
Yeah.
working on a demo.
Great. That's great. That's exactly, then you're exactly where you need to be. And I think getting that demo and then like use, since you have these people who are in the industry, to like send it to them, be like, hey, I'm, that I'm trying to work this out. I'd really I'd love whatever feedback you can give me about it. Um and then take their advice, like, and then yeah, refine your demo. Now, a lot there, as far as like demos are concerned, some people say that it needs to be like a full production. There needs to be the sound design and there needs to be the music behind it and all that stuff. I there's nothing wrong with those. I also have talked to a lot of casting directors and audio director and people who are in the position of hiring, who listen to these things. Like, it's just your voice. We just need your voice. That's why the Shakespeare one was so good for me for so long. It was minimal production. It was literally just me recording in the closet booth that I had back when I first got started, reciting Shakespeare in video game character voices. And it got me my first agent. It got me my first agent. And the other thing that got me my agent, and that got me every subsequent agent, is the commitment that this is what I'm doing. I don't expect you to be my only way to get work. I am creating work for myself all the time. I am constantly going to classes. I am constantly hustling. I am constantly attending conferences. I am reading. I am training. I am growing all the time. I'm in. I understand the industry. This is my commitment. Send me the auditions. I'll take care of the rest. I'm going to make my life easy. I'm going to make your life easy for you. I'm going to make your job easy. I'm going to bring work to you. And that's often the case. I'm often bringing work to my agent. Like, great, there's someone who's going to be calling you. It's already a done deal. Just whatever paperwork needs to be done, it's done. Yeah, that's so always be doing all the things. Always be consuming the information, always be growing. Like, I take math, like the course masterclass. You never know what gem, like I'll be studying a philosopher, or I'll be studying a chef. Like, you never know what's going to be valuable for a game. And we're working in this realm of embodying people. So understanding people and being a student of people is the work. And it is work. That's also the job. There was a quote that I heard recently, Michael Keaton, where everything really changed for him when he went from like going to an audition to like try and get the job, to saying like, no, this is my job. The audition is my job. I'm going to work. So when I do yoga, it's like, this is my job. This is my work. I'm doing this work so that when I get called for a physically fit person for a performance capture, I'm already there. I don't need to be like, oh, I got to hurry up and do the thing. Like right. So I take combat. I practice weapons so that I don't, so I'm already, it's just the maintenance all the time. But as far as, to answer the question, to circle back to kind of get a little bit more bare bones, is create the demo, and then comes the scary, daunting, but wildly exciting task of like sending it out to people. It's so scary, but it's also great. You'll because someone will get it. But always present yourself with the demo, not just the demo. What can you do for me? Present it with, I am a full package. I am working for you. We have a reciprocal relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship. And yeah, and like develop your business self, like develop your business and your voice and your self holistically. And then after that, then it's just then auditions, then you will get auditions, and you'll wind up getting more auditions, and you know what to do with. And like the job is just do them all, because your agent is trying to figure out where you fit. Where do you book most easily? And so just do them all, and then you will discover together.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
that's a great answer.
Okay.
We have a question from David Fioramonti. How do you take care of your voice
Mm,
slash instrument?
yeah. Um, Sleep is important, and like I know that's something, oh, sleep, but like I really have come to understand just how valuable rest and sleep and giving it a break is. I also vocalize. I studied in college, I studied the Kristen Linkletter method of vocal warm up and breath support. She has a book. It's called The Actor Prepares. No, I forgot. I will the name of the book. It's The Actor and the Kristen Linkletter. She only has one book, I think. So I think that um you're looking it up, aren't you?
I'm looking it up.
Oh, good. Kristen Linkletter. Um, so I practice her
Freeing the
method.
natural voice.
Thank you, freeing the natural voice. Um, and I practice her methodology of like like opening the voice and allowing like what my natural unencumbered voice would be, breath support, economy of breath and movement, and then alignment and posture, and then way warm up. So I find my voice, find my posture, and then I tap into my resonators, like where the different, like I move my voice around to warm up the inside of my head, and then like do a scale up and down so I can understand my range. And then I kind of start to play like I listen to music. There's a band called G.A.N.G Dance, and it's a lot of like it's not necessarily, it's singing, but it's not necessarily words. So I try to recreate Lisa Gerard's voice, but then when I'm feeling like really like creaturey or trying to be like sound designy, I'll try to recreate the sound of the instruments, just so I can expand what my understanding of my own voice is. And so it always keeps growing. I sing as low as I can. I sing as high as I can. I understand. I check in with myself about what my limitations are on any given day, but I get really warm, and I can feel myself warming up. I always have throat coat tea in a session. I always have multiple packets of throat coat tea. I hydrate the night before a session, like to a ridiculous degree, and morning of, and I cut out sugar and flour and dairy and alcohol before a session, 24 hours before a session. And then I that's what I do for a session. And then always, did I say green apple? Green apple. Always keep a green apple. I keep the loquat syrup.
Oh yeah, that I've seen
It's like
that.
it's like I can never remember what it's actually called, like the official name, but it's like a
A really
loquat.
thick syrup that coats your throat.
Yes, I always take that. I just drink it straight from the bottle. But that's like I try and it's like I try to make sure that I don't get to a place where I feel like I need it. Like because it's it's coding. I heard this recently. Somebody offered this as a suggestion for doing uh, vocally stressful is to spray chloroseptic in your throat. Like, don't ever, 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 ever do anything that numbs any kind of discomfort that you're feeling in your throat. You will blow out your voice and damage it, because you can't, like, the pain's important. You're like, if you're feeling pain, then you need to stop. So if you can't feel the pain, then you're doing damage you don't even know that you're doing. Anyway, that's my little soapbox for a moment there.
Also, that the syrup, I can't say who the voice actor was or the project or anything like that, but I do know that if your character that you're playing has gravel in the voice, and that gravel is essential to the performance of that character, really thick cough syrup might and probably will take the gravel out of the voice.
Oh no!
So that was something to watch out for.
How do we put the gravel back in?
I took
the gravel out. I coated it. Good point.
Yeah, that killed us.
And then there's also cooldown. There's also cooldown afterwards. Is like, it seems counterintuitive, but on the drive home after a session, like, I'll sing for a while and just like cool it down. Humming, just walking around the house humming. That also is really great.
Like a cool down period, like as if you were working out.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, we only have one last question from Corey Jenkins. So I'll read the whole thing.
All right.
Hi, Morla. Nice to see you. I do have a question, seeing that my other alma mater has reinstated their theater program this summer, but the last time I was involved in my studies was 2010 as a Gen Studies theater concentration major. And let's see, seeing that I would need about 52 to 50 credits or hours to finish, do you recommend that I finish what I have started years ago, or continue on with that?
Oh dear. It sounds like, first of all, hi, Corey. I'm familiar with Corey. We have a mutual friend back in Louisiana. If I'm right, if I'm thinking of the same person, I think I am. So that sounds like it sounds like there's a whole lot of stuff going on with that it sounds like a larger conversation. And my guess is that if it's within a college structure, that there's probably advisors who would be able to, you'd be able to talk with one-on-one, who would be able to get you where you need to go or where you want to go with that. That just seems like they're talking about like credits and things like that. It just seems like something that's not within my area of expertise. And it also seems like it's a larger question of like deciding what it is you want for yourself, which is not really my area of expertise. But I think
I could amend the question slightly to be,
okay,
what is the value of formal education, formal college education in this sort of thing versus just going out and doing it?
Okay, yeah, that I can answer for sure. There's value. It seems like a cop out, but there's value in each. I personally went the route of having a formal education, and I use it all the time. There's never a time where I'm like, oh gosh, I really wish I didn't have this degree, this formal education. Like, it's again, it's the idea of like, we are embodying humans. So the more experience, the more knowledge you have is not ever bad. It's never like, oh, I know, I understand too much. Like, even that's never a thing. That being said, there is value in using your youth to just go and do it. Like using that time to get on the job training or experience world life experience. There's value in that. I myself feel like it was the right thing for me. I suspect, knowing myself as I do, like just jumping into a world, like showing up in LA as a teenager might not have been a great thing for me. Like, I feel like I needed to kind of figure out my life in a safe college structure, and learn from there. I had to like, I feel like arriving in LA when I did, with credits under my belt, with a beefy IMDb already. I felt like I was arriving in LA, as opposed to like showing up and asking for help. Like I was like, no, I'm here. I'm ready. I am ready. I felt like the absolute right time for me. But that's me. You know, I know people who showed up and just like were scrappy, but they were very self-directed and focused, and knew exactly what they wanted, had a very clear idea, and like just went for it. And they learned things that you would never learn in a college class. And that was right for them. I think it's just knowing yourself, and knowing, balancing safety and the opposite of safety.
Balancing safety and
Chaos. Safety.
Chaos being risk. Safety versus risk, I guess.
I don't make the words, I just say them.
I just try to remember them. Awesome. So,
and I do want to say this one last thing about Hang, which was very important, and it's
yes, let's go.
in the grand scheme of Hang, and like creating Hang, and like going into other people's Hang, and like GDC Hang, which is like a whole other sphere of like Hang. My first understanding was like I had to meet the people who were in charge. Who are the people who are making the decisions? Those are the people that I need to meet. They're the people who are going to be hiring me. And there's truth in that. That's true. It is important to know who's making the decisions now. But equally important is finding out who your graduating class is. Who are you coming up with? Who are you starting out with? Who is going to be your who are your peers? And don't discredit them because they're getting started, because you're getting started. You can all grow together. And then it's amazing what happens from that. A lot of the work that I have is a result of people who were just getting started at the same time I was getting started. Not the people who were already established being like, I bestow upon you this career. It's like, let's make things together, guys. Come on, let's make a game. And like being cool, like being interested, being authentic, not needing to be the center of attention, being interested in what other people are doing, and just keep showing up, just keep showing up. Yeah. And join G.A.N.G.
In G.A.N.G, absolutely. And yeah, keep showing up is probably the best advice. If I were in a panelist position like you are right now and I had advice to give, that would be the biggest thing, is like, you can't give up.
Longevity. It's they say like fortune favors the bold. It's like, well, fortune also favors the people who just keep showing up, just keep sticking around, who are too stubborn to stop. Or just, I think I say that jokingly, but who also just know, even when everything is like saying no to you. They just somehow know, like, no, this is just a moment. This is just a moment in time. On the other side of this is what I need and what I want and what I'm great at. And I'm just on the other side of whatever this setback is where I need to be to offer my talent, to give to the world this thing that I have cultivated. Yeah. And it sometimes feels like, oh, it's voice, but there have been times where I've had people come up to me at conferences who were like, you don't even know what your character did for me. I didn't want to get out of bed, but I really loved your character. And so like, I got out of bed because I wanted to like go hang out with your character in the tower. Like, that's not small.
The tower was The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners.
No, the tower is Eris in.
Oh, sorry, Destiny.
But also, you know,
I think there was a building.
There is a tower. I guess there's people who'd want to hang out with May.
Yeah, I'm like, Destiny makes more sense. May, I was like, that's an interesting character to want to.
Yeah. And she's a mom. I guess people want to hang out with a mom.
I want to hang out with my mom. My mom's cool.
See, that's nice. That's great.
My mom's on this webinar. That's part of why I said that. She's an attendee. So anyway.
Hey, Mom!
Yeah. So anyways, that brings us to 12:30. So
oh yeah, wow. Right on time.
Yeah. Thank you, Morla, for your time and all of your expertise and stories and advice. David says thanks for the webinar. I learned a lot. You're awesome. Okay, so thank you everybody for attending.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank
you, Lucas.
Wonderful
time. It was very enjoyable.
Yes. This will be posted on the Game Audio Network Guild website. We have a new webinar page where all of our past webinars are going to be uploaded, and this will be right there with them. So
hooray.
Awesome.
Great.